This is a clip from the Cannon podcast. To hear the full episode and get access to exclusive benefits, head over to patreon.com/thecannonpod and sign up for just £3 a month.
Right, Kai Havertz is a player that out of nowhere, and I mean honestly out of nowhere, Arsenal not just be linked to, but offer to be made, personal terms agreed, the player is pushing for the move, as Fabrizio would say. And it looks like this could actually happen, Kai Havertz at the Emirates Stadium. Now a lot of fans don't know what to make of it. On social media there's very mixed reviews of should Arsenal sign him, why does Mikel Arteta want him, reported wages of up to £200,000 a week. It's a massive investment. George, what do you make of the Kai Havertz news, and does it make sense for Arsenal to want him?
I think that Kai Havertz is an interesting player. It's definitely not something I went into the window expecting from a profile and also just from a player himself. I think he's a very unique talent that needs to be built around in a unique way. So Kai Havertz, what is he? Let's talk about what he is and then how he would maybe fit into Arsenal, because he's not coming to play the Xhaka role. I can tell you that right now. It's going to be a different role. He can't do that role. In terms of his Leverkusen days, he's had some sample as a deeper 8, he's had sample as a 10, and he's had sample as a right winger. And he's got quite a lot of output in those different roles. But one of the things with Kai Havertz is he's not a primary creator. He is somebody that, is going to be supplemented to another creator. And, we've got that in Martin Odegaard. But one thing with Kai Havertz is he's very diligent in the press. He will go to meet markers really well. But one thing that he isn't very good at is a two-way dueling ability. So what do I mean by that? Is he's not going to be somebody that can recover second balls in the same way that, Granit Xhaka would have. And so is he able to defend in a pivot? Not really. A lot of his strengths are he's quite fast. He's a huge transition weapon. And his big superpower is analyzing space. His spatial awareness is incredible. A lot of the RVP comparisons, when people on Twitter are making that, I'm not sure if I 100% agree with them, but one thing I do agree with was his ability to kind of analyze a backline and find where the space is. Van Persie was phenomenal in terms of finding space in the backline, and he wasn't necessarily the quickest. He wasn't explosive, but his movement and his intelligent movement is what created separation so often. That is Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz is a 10.5 a second striker kind of player. He's in between both a target man type, and the reason why he struggles, though, is he can't receive under contact very well. He's very inconsistent when hit. And at the same token, he's also somebody that, I think he struggles a little bit more when he is asked to be a primary finisher. We've seen in Chelsea appearances as a number 9. Why is it that he struggled? Well, a lot of it is the contact from behind, but also he is somebody that I think is lacking in confidence right now at the moment. If you actually look at his career, he's overperformed his XG throughout his entire career. So I think he's got a really nice variety of finishes in his tool bag. But one thing that I don't agree with is I don't know, does he complement a Jesus type of striker, who is another false 9 himself that likes to drop into midfield on either side and create movement in the front line? I think the best way that you can make use of Kai Havertz, because he can't defend in a pivot, is you'll almost need to rework him at the tip of a diamond. And everybody who is a Cruyff kind of aficionado would recognize this formation really quite well. You basically have this 3-4-3, and for me, Kai Havertz operates best as the tip of the diamond, but he operates best in the way that he's got a backboard striker, somebody like a Haaland, somebody like an Ivan Toney, an Osimhen, that type of center forward to come knock balls off, take the physical portion of moving center backs themselves, but then he picks up the layoffs and he can explode into space, he can release a pass. That's the type of player I see with him. Now, do I see Arsenal recruiting that type of striker this window? No. That's why I'm a little bit afraid. It's a lot of money for a very specific type of player. I think he fits the future version of Arsenal. I think we do recruit that tall channel running 9 eventually. But if I'm really being honest, Bhavs, mate, I think this is more Rafinha than it is a philosophy thing. And what do I mean by that? I think it's an opportunity. You look at a talent like Kai Havertz and you can get him on a discount. Arsenal and big clubs are going to be there. And his frame is something that's going to keep these big clubs always interested, right? This idea that he could maybe deal with contact is very exciting because he's 6'2", extremely fast. I think he set almost a record in the Bundesliga for his speed himself. I think his speed is very underrated. And when you combine that with the technical quality he has, which is really quite high, he's inconsistent, but his technical quality is phenomenal. If you can put that together, you've got a really interesting package. But then my question becomes, is a 65 million pound player of 200,000 pounds a week a good risk? That is something that I'm really unsure about. And I think it does require a change in formation to really exploit Kai Havertz. For example, I always have said on Twitter, for me, look at the Kevin De Bruyne role with Erling Haaland right now. That is something that I could totally see Kai Havertz excelling in and us wanting to do. But I think Jesus is a very different type of striker. So there are things that he can do in terms of holding up, but he's not quite Haaland in how he links play. So I'm very interested to see that interplay. And how does that fit with Martin Odegaard, by the way? Does that push Martin Odegaard deeper to defend in a pivot? Is that something that you want to do with Declan Rice? What is the off-the-ball structure in terms of our defense? Is it still a 4-4-2 that we're still typically of seeing of last season? I don't know. So there are qualities I like, not to sit on the fence. I'm just very worried about how that balance works out with a Martin Odegaard and Declan Rice in the midfield and how we're able to organize ourselves off the ball, and whether that means a totally different formation, i.e. the 3-4-3 tip of a diamond. Do we see that more so? I know that's how I would probably use Kai Havertz to best exploit his qualities.
And in terms of yourself, Alex, I know that you've tried to make sense of it as well. I've seen your thread on Twitter. It was very, very good, very detailed. What do you make of Kai Havertz's potential role in his Arsenal team? Make sure you follow him as well. In terms of where he plays, is it as a number 8? Is it as a false 9? Is it as a right winger? Because he's played a few games there for Leverkusen as well. Where would a Kai Havertz play for Arsenal and thrive in our system?
Well, I think George outlined his profile very well. I would say the only thing that I would add is his understanding of space, which always sounds a bit vague. But what I mean by that is he's very good behind the striker or behind the right wing or whatever, understanding where he needs to fill in, where the next pass is. He's often the player who plays the ball before the assist. He's really good at that, and he really understands the game. He's a smart player, and as well as his physical qualities in terms of his height, he's, as George mentioned, very, very fast. So I think he could help us on the transition in certain transitional moments. If you go and watch him for Bayer Leverkusen, they did a lot of that, and he was really good at that in terms of just picking the ball up, being the player who, if Rice is the guy who's going to take the ball off the foot of the opposition, he's going to play it to Havertz, and Havertz is the guy who gets us forward and makes the right ball before the final assist. That sort of thing that he does. It's very difficult to say where he'll play because he is a very unique profile. We've seen Thomas Tuchel come out and say, this is a really unique profile and he isn't exactly one thing or another. I don't want to compare him to any players because I think he's really unique. So what that tells me is it's the clearest indication yet that something is fundamentally going to change about how we play next season. I think this Havertz signing is almost tacit confirmation that something is really going to change next season. Whether that is, as George mentioned, the tip of the diamond, whether we start playing that kind of box midfield in build-up before he moves into more of a central position further up the pitch. That's an interesting question. We get hung up always on formations and we get hung up always on positions and stuff. And those things are fine as an idea. But really, I don't think coaches think like that. They think about, okay, where am I in my first phase? Who do I want where in my first phase to tackle that build-up, to tackle their press or whatever? Then we move into our sort of progression phase. Where do I want my players? Are we in a box midfield or whatever? And then in the final third, where do I want my players? So we have to start thinking in those terms. And then off the ball, I would share that I have some concerns about his as George mentioned, him under contact. He concerns me under contact. And I think while he can press and he can be that kind of blocking player in terms of stopping what's the word, lines, and stopping sort of passing lines and passing lanes.
Passing lanes, yeah.
Passing lanes, that's it. I think he can do that, and he can be coached into that. But I do worry about him in terms of literally going and getting the ball back. George mentioned this the other day. He's not a second ball rover. He's not a primary creator. He's not someone who is going to go out and score 30 goals a season for you. He's a very, very unique profile. So that tells me that there is a very specific role for him that Mikel wants him to do. I'm interested. I don't know. And also what's exciting as well is it could be that he's coming in to be almost the 12th man, to come in and cover at left central midfielder in some games. It could be that we're staying exactly the same, but Havertz is our other option at false nine. Our other option is a floater on the wing. I don't know. That could be an option. But what I'm almost certain of is that this indicates that something's going to change. And we have precedent for that as well. Every single summer, something has changed. We've moved from a kind of not basic, but more simple 4-2-3-1. We've then seen the sort of 3-2. We've seen the inverted fullback coming into the 2 in the 3-2. We've seen us playing 5 at the back in the FA Cup. We've seen evolutions in this team. So it tells me that there is likely to be another evolution next season. And as we've seen with City, they've almost played in a 4-4-2 or a 2-4-4, whatever you want to call it, or 2-3-5, whatever it is. And I think there's roles for Havertz in all of these places. I think I'll finish on this. We try and sort of reverse engineer. We go, oh, what this player that we're signing, are they the Jesus or are they the Xhaka? What if they're neither? And that's exciting to me.
Thanks for checking out the Cannon Podcast. To get full episodes and access to exclusive benefits, head over to patreon.com/thecannonpod and sign up for just £3 a month.